T. Greezly is having it rough. He was just linked to the murder of his aunt after years of claiming it was a hit gone wrong.
What happened, they walked up to my door and opened my door. You know what I'm saying? Some opened my door trying to get at me. He ended up hitting her up.
Now, word is he's been attacked in jail, and it wasn't just because of the murder. Inmates allegedly found out about his rumored intimate relationship with his aunt. Let's break it down. The Jobina Brown murder conspiracy. T. Greezly, real name Terry Wallace Jr., started this year thinking he was in the clear. His aunt, Jobina J.B. Brown, was murdered back in 2019, and the alleged killer, Jermaine Whedon, had finally been caught. But as the trial of Whedon, known in Chicago's Deadly 600 crew as Wu Thang, unfolded in July 2025, the streets started whispering something darker, because what came out in court wasn't just about a shooter. The prosecution painted a picture so damning it had the courtroom shook. Cell phone records placed Whedon near the crime scene, and when Chicago police caught him months later, he was riding dirty with the exact .40 caliber Glock that ballistics matched to the shell casings found at the scene. But that's when things got real twisted, real fast. Word started circulating that this wasn't just some random Chicago shooter trying to make a name for himself in Detroit. This was allegedly a hit, orchestrated by the very person who should have been protecting Jobina Brown. According to court documents and witness testimony, the defense claimed that T. Greezly orchestrated the entire hit, allegedly motivated by some twisted family drama that would make a soap opera writer jealous. They painted a picture of a man so desperate to escape a situation that he was willing to cross the ultimate line, betraying the very person who lifted him up when he was down. But here's where it gets even more twisted. The defense wasn't just throwing around wild accusations for the sake of getting their client off. They had receipts. Phone records allegedly showing communications between T. Greezly and the Chicago crew. Bank records supposedly showing cash withdrawals that matched the alleged payment. Even more damning, there were claims of Uber dashcam footage that allegedly showed T. Greezly exiting the vehicle moments before the shooting went down, only to flee in a blue Camaro with Chicago plates. The streets had been whispering about this for years, but when Trap Lore Ross and other YouTube investigators started putting the pieces together, the picture became crystal clear. The connection between T. Greezly and Chicago's 600 crew wasn't some secret industry collaboration. This was allegedly business, the kind of business that ends lives and destroys families. The same crew that had ties to OTF, the same streets that had claimed so many lives, had allegedly been hired to take out Detroit's own. What made this whole situation even more suspicious was the family dynamics that were slowly being exposed. Jobina Brown wasn't T. Greezly's blood aunt. She was his uncle's wife. And according to police sources who spoke to investigators, there were allegations of an inappropriate relationship that had developed while his uncle was locked up. The timeline was damning. Uncle gets sentenced to 9 years. 3 months later, he's allegedly getting intimate with his wife. And not long after that, she ends up dead in a hail of bullets. But the streets weren't buying T. Greezly's version of events, and neither was law enforcement.
I was told the police chief looked T. Greezly in his eyes and told him, "I know you involved somehow."
The fact that Whedon had been posted up at the location for 2 hours before T. Greezly and Jobina even arrived raised too many red flags. How does a Chicago shooter know exactly where to be and when to be there unless someone on the inside is feeding him information? The response from T. Greezly's camp was swift but not convincing enough for the streets. When the rumors exploded in July 2025, he addressed them in a live stream, calling the allegations nasty work and claiming they were completely false. But his decision to invoke the Fifth Amendment when subpoenaed to testify in Whedon's trial spoke volumes to those who were watching closely. Innocent men don't typically refuse to testify when it comes to finding justice for their murdered family members. The fan reaction was as divided as a city during a gang war. Loyal supporters rallied to his defense, viewing the rumors as nothing more than clout-chasing lies designed to tear down a successful black man. They pointed to his public mourning, his tribute song, Saddish, and his obvious grief as evidence that he could never have been involved in such a heinous act. These fans argued that the internet had created a conspiracy theory out of thin air, fueled by jealousy and the need for drama in the rap community. But on the other side of the fence, longtime observers of the Detroit rap scene weren't so easily convinced. They pointed to inconsistencies in his story, his continued association with members of the 600 crew even after one of their own was arrested for his aunt's murder, and the suspicious circumstances surrounding the entire incident. These fans felt betrayed, wondering if the man they had supported through his legal troubles and celebrated for his comeback was capable of something so unthinkable. What made the situation even more explosive was the revelation of his continued friendship with Booker 600, a prominent member of the same Chicago crew that Whedon claimed allegiance to. Photos surfaced of Booker 600 serving as a groomsman in T. Greezly's wedding, raising questions about how deep these connections really ran. If your aunt's killer came from a crew that you're still tight with, what does that say about your involvement in the situation? The streets remember everything, and they remember the old Detroit Hits Instagram post from years ago that predicted exactly this scenario. Anonymous sources had been whispering about 600's involvement in Jobina Brown's murder since it happened, but most people dismissed it as gossip and speculation. Now, with Whedon on trial and the evidence piling up, those old rumors were looking more like inside information. But perhaps the most damning aspect of this entire conspiracy was the motive that investigators had uncovered. The allegation that Jobina Brown was pregnant at the time of her death, though later disproven by autopsy results, revealed the mindset of those allegedly involved in planning her murder. Even if the pregnancy was a false rumor, the fact that the shooters believed it and used it as justification for their actions showed the level of planning and personal motivation behind the hit. As the trial dragged on and more evidence came to light, one thing became crystal clear. The man who rapped about backdoors and betrayal might have been living that reality more literally than fans ever imagined. But for those who've been paying attention, this isn't T. Greezly's first run-in with the law, and it might not be his last. The making of a street legend behind bars. T. Greezly's criminal journey began in 2014 when he and his accomplice Jeremy Ford decided that Michigan State University's dormitories were their personal shopping mall. They weren't just stealing laptops and gaming consoles, they were stealing dreams, futures, and the hard-earned money that students' families had scraped together for education. $20,000 worth of electronics and cash disappeared into their hands, but what they thought was easy. Money became the first domino in a series that would crash down on their heads like a building demolition.
Yeah, we got a warrant out for your arrest. Your friend just turned herself in.
When that phone call came through while he was on his way to Kentucky, Terry knew his world was about to change forever. But instead of facing the music like a man, he made a decision that would haunt him through concrete corridors and steel-barred windows for years to come. July 1st, 2014 became the day that desperation overrode common sense when he walked into that Lexington, Kentucky jewelry store with nothing but bad intentions and a heart full of fear.
I pulled a hammer out, hit the glass. See all the Rolexes. Before I can even grab one of them, I hear freeze.
That moment when he heard freeze wasn't just law enforcement stopping a robbery. It was reality checking his entire life trajectory with the force of a sledgehammer. The Kentucky sentence hit him with 9 months that felt like 9 years, locked up with hardened criminals who had been playing this game since before he was born. But Kentucky was just the appetizer. Michigan was waiting with the main course, and it was going to be a feast of consequences that would either break him or build him into something unrecognizable. The extradition back to Michigan came with a second-degree home invasion charge that carried a potential sentence of up to 15 years. 15 years. That's a lifetime for someone who hadn't even lived 2 decades on this earth. But Terry wasn't going down without a fight, and his weapons weren't fists or contraband. They were law books, legal precedents, and a mind sharp enough to find loopholes in a system designed to swallow young black men whole.
We finding cases similar to ours, or we ain't never make it out the jury store, so they can't call it a robbery. It's destruction of property at the most.
His time studying those law books wasn't just about reducing his sentence. It was about survival in an environment where weakness could get you killed and ignorance could keep you locked up forever. He challenged the classification of weapons, argued legal technicalities, and proved that a young man from Detroit's roughest neighborhoods could outthink lawyers who had spent years in law school. The system tried to crush him, but instead of breaking, he adapted, evolved, and learned to use their own rules against them. But legal victories couldn't protect him from the daily reality of prison life, where violence was as common as breathing, and respect was earned through blood and reputation. The walls of facilities like St. Louis Correctional Facility, Macomb Correction Facility, and Jackson State Prison became his universities, teaching him lessons that no classroom could ever provide. Every day was a test of his character, his strength, and his will to survive in an environment designed to strip away everything that made him human. The fights were inevitable, sparked by everything from food disputes to respect challenges to simple misunderstandings that escalated into life or death situations. In prison, your reputation followed you from cell block to cell block, from mealtime to yard time, and one sign of weakness could mark you as prey for predators who had nothing left to lose. Terry learned to stand his ground without starting unnecessary conflicts, to project strength without inviting challenges, and to navigate the complex social hierarchies that kept the peace in places where chaos was always one incident away.
I'm like, I ain't never getting up. I'm writing raps for rap.
The transformation from Terry to T. Greezly happened somewhere between the concrete walls and steel bars, in the quiet moments when despair threatened to consume him, and hope seemed like a luxury he couldn't afford. Music became his escape, his therapy, and eventually his salvation. Writing lyrics wasn't just a hobby, it was a lifeline thrown to a drowning man, and he grabbed it with both hands and held on like his life depended on it. His release on October 16, 2016, after serving approximately 28 months total, should have been the end of his story with the criminal justice system. Parole Parole conditions included restrictions on travel, associations, and activities that could have derailed his music career before it even started. But freedom came with its own set of challenges, and the August 23, 2018 parole violation proved that the streets were still calling, even when success was within reach. That 5-day stint in the Detroit Reentry Center might have been brief, but it served as a stark reminder of how quickly freedom could be snatched away. The charges weren't disclosed publicly, but the message was clear. Even successful rappers weren't above the law, and past mistakes could come back to haunt you when you least expected it. His completion of probation in late 2018 marked the official end of his legal obligations, but the psychological scars and hard-learned lessons would stay with him forever. Understanding T. Greezly's criminal history means understanding the environment that created him, and that environment was shaped by a childhood that would break most people before they reached their teens. Born into a world where parents disappeared into the system like ghosts and violence was as common as sunrise, Terry's early years were a masterclass in survival against impossible odds. His grandmother became his anchor in a sea of chaos, providing the stability that his parents couldn't offer from behind prison walls. When his mother, LaToya Perry, was sentenced to 20 years for drug trafficking in 2011, Terry was still a teenager trying to figure out his place in a world that seemed determined to destroy him. The weight of that abandonment, combined with the constant struggle to survive in Detroit's unforgiving streets, created a perfect storm of desperation and determination. The murder of his father in 2012 removed the last male role model from his life, leaving him to navigate manhood without a compass or guide. Death and incarceration had stolen his family piece by piece, and the teenager who should have been worried about homework and girlfriends was instead concerned with putting food on the table and staying alive in neighborhoods where both were daily challenges. His academic success, despite these circumstances, showed a young man capable of greatness, but circumstances have a way of overwhelming even the strongest individuals. Being the first in his family to attend college should have been a celebration, but financial pressures at Michigan State University turned what should have been an opportunity into another source of stress and desperation. The transition from promising college student to convicted felon wasn't inevitable, but it was predictable given the circumstances. When legal means of survival seem impossible and illegal means offer immediate solutions, young men make desperate choices that alter the trajectory of their entire lives. Terry's choices led him down a path that millions of young black men have walked before him, and the fact that he emerged from that path transformed rather than destroyed speaks to a strength that prison couldn't break. His relationship with Maisha Agnew, whom he married in 2023, represents the possibility of redemption and growth that comes from surviving the worst that life can offer. Their son, Terry Wallace III, born in 2021, gives him a reason to stay on the straight and narrow that goes beyond personal success or artistic achievement. Family has always been his weakness and his strength, and now he has a family of his own to protect and provide for. His brother Marcellus, baby Greezly Wallace's ongoing legal troubles, serve as a reminder that escaping the cycle of crime and incarceration isn't easy for anyone from their environment. While T. Greezly managed to channel his experiences into music and success, his brother's path shows how easily things could have gone differently, how quickly success can be overshadowed by past mistakes and present choices. The man who emerged from those prison walls wasn't the same scared teenager who walked in, and the transformation would prove to be the foundation for everything that came after. His time behind bars wasn't just about paying a debt to society, it was about discovering who he really was when everything else was stripped away, and what he found there would fuel a music career that would inspire millions, while simultaneously raising questions about the thin line between redemption and relapse. But as Terry Wallace Jr. transformed into T. Greezly, the lessons learned in concrete cells and steel-barred windows would become the raw material for a musical legacy that would establish him as one of Detroit's most authentic voices, even as that same authenticity would later be called into question when family loyalty and street justice collided in ways that nobody could have predicted. From cell blocks to gold blocks, the musical evolution of a changed man. The studio booth became T. Greezly's new cell, but this time the bars were made of sound waves and the walls were constructed from beats that hit harder than any correction officer's baton ever could. His release from prison on October 16, 2016, marked the beginning of a musical journey that would transform the pain of concrete floors and steel bars into platinum plaques and sold-out venues, proving that sometimes the darkest chapters of life can become the foundation for the brightest successes. The creation of First Day Out wasn't just the recording of a song, it was the birth of a legend. The moment when Terry Wallace Jr. officially died and T. Greezly was reborn through the alchemy of pain, experience, and raw talent. Recorded just hours after walking out of those prison gates, the track carried the weight of 27 months behind bars, the dreams deferred by steel and concrete, and the hunger of a man who had tasted freedom twice and wasn't about to let it slip away again.
That shit had 250,000 views.
Like a week later, I get my first check.
That 250,000 views in a week wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was validation from the streets, confirmation that his story resonated with people who had lived similar struggles, and proof that authenticity could cut through the noise of industry politics and manufactured personas. When LeBron James posted the song on his Instagram, it wasn't just a celebrity endorsement. It was a cosign from greatness, a signal to the industry that this young man from Detroit had something special that couldn't be ignored or replicated. The record deal with 300 Entertainment and Atlantic Records in 2017 represented more than just financial security. It was vindication for every night spent writing rhymes in a prison cell, every day spent studying law books instead of giving up, and every moment when hope seemed like a luxury he couldn't afford. But this wasn't just another rapper getting signed. This was the emergence of a voice that spoke for everyone who had been counted out, written off, and left for dead by a system designed to keep them down. The collaborative mixtape Blood A's with Lil Durk in December 2017 represented more than just two rappers working together. It was a meeting of minds from different cities who shared similar experiences with the criminal justice system and the streets that shaped them. The chemistry between Detroit's rising star and Chicago's established voice created magic that couldn't be manufactured in focus groups or corporate boardrooms, proving that real recognizes real regardless of zip codes or area codes. His debut studio album Activated dropped on May 11, 2018, and peaked at #10 on the Billboard 200, establishing him as more than just a mixtape rapper or a social media sensation. This was legitimacy in its purest form, the kind of success that opened doors and created opportunities that most people from his background never get to see. But success came with its own set of challenges, and the pressure to maintain relevance while staying true to his roots would test him in ways that prison never could. Albums like Scriptures in 2019, Built for Whatever in 2021, and T's Coney Island in 2023 showed an artist in constant evolution, refusing to be boxed into the limitations that the industry often places on rappers from his background. Each project represented growth, maturity, and a willingness to explore different aspects of his personality and experiences while maintaining the core authenticity that made him special in the first place. The 2024 album Post Traumatic featured collaborations with J. Cole, Future, and YTB Fat, proving that his influence had grown to the point where some of the biggest names in hip-hop wanted to work with him. These weren't charity features or industry obligations. These were artistic partnerships between equals, recognition that T. Greezly had earned his place at the table through talent, consistency, and the kind of authentic storytelling that can't be faked or manufactured. But 2025 would prove to be a defining year in his musical evolution, starting with the release of My God on May 9th, 2025. Produced by Helliva, the track represented a spiritual awakening, a man grappling with faith, success, and the weight of his past decisions. The lyrics, "Please stay focused, don't get tricked off the streets, you know so many depending on you," weren't just bars. They were prayers, affirmations, and reminders of the responsibility that comes with influence and success. Forever My Moment, released on May 16th, 2025, represented the culmination of 8 years of dedication to his craft. The 14-track album, lasting 38 minutes, was a masterclass in efficiency and impact, with each song serving a specific purpose in the overall narrative. Tracks like Jalen Hurtsky, Rick Jameski, They Shot at Trump, Stash House in Dearborn, and Robbery 9 Inches showcased his ability to comment on current events, personal experiences, and street realities with equal skill and authenticity. His performance at Summerfest 2025 in Milwaukee proved that his appeal extended far beyond recording studios and streaming platforms. The 45-minute set kept the crowd energized, connecting with the Midwest audience in ways that only authentic artists can achieve. Sharing the stage with Milwaukee's own 414 Big Frank and Steve DeStoner, he demonstrated the kind of humility and respect for local scenes that separates real artists from industry products. His upcoming performance at Afrofuture Detroit on August 16th, 2025, alongside international artists like Kaytranada, Davido, Gims, and Ludmilla, represents more than just another festival booking. It's a homecoming for a man who never forgot where he came from, even as his success took him to stages around the world. The fact that his hometown continues to embrace him, despite all the controversies and legal troubles, speaks to the genuine connection he maintains with the streets that raised him. The Forever My Moment tour, spanning September and October 2025, with stops in Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, Atlanta, and other major cities, proves that his fan base extends far beyond the Midwest. These aren't just concerts, they're communions between an artist and audiences who see their own struggles reflected in his lyrics, their own dreams validated by his success, and their own potential proven by his transformation from convict to chart topper. But perhaps the most significant aspect of T. Greezly's musical evolution has been his ability to maintain authenticity while achieving commercial success. In an industry that often forces artists to choose between street credibility and mainstream appeal, he has managed to walk the tightrope with the same balance and precision that kept him alive in prison. His lyrics still reflect the realities of street life, but they also acknowledge the growth and maturity that comes from surviving those experiences and building something better. His gaming streams on Twitch, primarily playing Grand Theft Auto 5, have allowed fans to see a different side of his personality, one that's relaxed, humorous, and genuinely enjoying life in ways that would have been impossible during his darkest days. These streams aren't just entertainment, they're proof that redemption is possible, that people can change, and that success doesn't have to come at the cost of your soul or your sense of fun. His collaborations with artists across different genres and backgrounds have shown his versatility and willingness to step outside his comfort zone while maintaining the core elements that make his music special. Whether he's trading bars with established superstars or supporting up-and-coming artists from his city, he approaches each collaboration with the professionalism and respect that comes from understanding the value of genuine artistic connections. The fact that his music continues to chart on the Billboard 200 years after his initial breakthrough proves that his appeal isn't based on novelty or shock value, but on the timeless qualities of authentic storytelling and genuine emotion. In an era where viral moments often fade as quickly as they appear, his sustained success represents something deeper and more meaningful than temporary internet fame. His tribute to Jobina Brown through the song Saddish remains one of his most emotionally powerful tracks, regardless of the controversies that would later surround their relationship. The raw pain in his voice, the genuine grief in his lyrics, and the love evident in every bar created a piece of art that transcended rap music and became a universal statement about loss, family, and the complexity of human relationships. But perhaps the most impressive aspect of T. Greezly's musical journey has been his ability to inspire others who find themselves in similar situations. His story of transformation from convict to successful artist has become a blueprint for young men and women who refuse to let their worst moments define their entire lives. His music serves as proof that redemption is possible, that talent combined with determination can overcome almost any obstacle, and that success achieved through struggle is sweeter than success handed to you on a silver platter. The studio sessions that once served as therapy for a man processing trauma and loss have evolved into creative laboratories where he continues to push the boundaries of his artistic expression. Each new release represents not just musical evolution, but personal growth, spiritual development, and the ongoing process of becoming the man he was meant to be, rather than the man his circumstances tried to make him. His marriage to Aisha Agnew in 2023 and the birth of his son Terry Wallace III have added new dimensions to his music, bringing themes of fatherhood, responsibility, and legacy into songs that once focused primarily on survival and street credibility. The man who once rapped about having nothing to lose now has everything to protect, and that shift in perspective has added depth and maturity to his artistic expression. We've come to the end, fam. To stay up to date for street gossip, please be sure to click on the card showing on the screen.